Hey, and welcome to Legendary Lovers Live, the show where I host a legendary love queen, me, myself, Serena, and the gorgeous Angela Dawn. Welcome, welcome. We are love and relationship siblings, and we today are going to discuss and guide you through a world where love reignites, passion thrives, and hearts find their forever home. So, before we start, I want to welcome you again to Angela. And Angela, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Would you like to introduce yourself more? I always like to let my guests introduce themselves a little bit more because you know exactly what
Sure.
you want to say.
Yes, thank you for having me, Serena. This will be a fun little conversation, I think, about intimacy. Yes, fantastic. I'm Angela Dawn. I am in the US on the East Coast, very near Washington, D.C. And my focus is helping couples get closer. I'm a Tantra coach, and I work with couples and individuals.
Amazing. And the two of us both went through a certification called Vita with the gorgeous Layla Martin. So we are actually trained in the same core training when it
Mhm,
comes
mhm.
to working with our clients, which is really beautiful. And we both work with couples, which is amazing, right? Because we can give even more today. So today is all about talking about connection and how we can bring intimacy um, through physical and through the, oh my goodness, my brain has gone, I'm jet lagged. Physical and I want to say emotional intimacy is what I want to say.
Yes, emotional intimacy, right? And, let's talk about emotional intimacy. I was trying to, before this, I was like thinking, what's the definition of emotional intimacy? And what I came up with was like the feeling of being in sync with someone else. Like
Yeah,
that's what emotional
absolutely.
intimacy is to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
think as well, like I've been with my partner, my husband, for nearly 30 years. We've been together since I was 16. And it's a huge journey, right? To get to a
hmm
space where you can connect on that deeper level. And it's something that you need to consistently work through. It's not something where you get
absolutely.
there and that's it, you've made it. It's a consistent journey, evolution of two people coming together.
Yes, yes. And you have to be intentional about it, right? You have to make sure that that connection is on your mind and kind of
Mm.
constantly be tending to it, right? If you don't have that intention, it's very easy to be another one of those couples where you're just like sitting on the couch together looking at your phones, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so
Yeah.
easily done as well, right? To do that, to come home,
hmm
especially if you've had a busy day, just to come home to focus on like what needs to be done. Maybe you're feeding the children, maybe you've got housework to do, maybe you've got some bits of work you need to finish. And it's easy just to focus on those things and forget actually that the two of you need that communication and that intimacy together. So
Right.
it is about being very conscious of the two of you are coexisting in a space together and how you can share those intimate moments. And it doesn't have to be, I often get people usually say to me, I just don't have time, or actually
Mm,
by the time the kids are in bed, I'm not really fancying spending, intimate moments with my partner. But actually intimacy doesn't mean that, right? It doesn't necessarily
right.
mean um, bedroom activities or things like that. It's more around um, bringing yourself together spiritually, connecting with one
hmm
another.
Yeah, I mean, we've really got two aspects here, right? We have emotional intimacy, like I said, that feeling of being in sync with someone else, and then there's physical intimacy, and that
Yeah.
doesn't mean just sleeping with someone, right? Like that, there's a
No.
gamut there. There's hugs, there's leaning on each other, there's like brushing your hair, there's holding hands, like any touching at all is physical intimacy. And the way I see it is you really have to have that emotional intimacy first, right? You have to have the emotional intimacy in order to then be able to have that real physical intimacy. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, having the emotional intimacy allows partners to feel safe and secure in the connection and then open up to that physical intimacy for sure.
Yeah, and emotional intimacy is something that will go, like, it will disappear if you're not regularly working on it as well, which is why
Exactly.
then that physical aspect becomes so hard to do, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels
Mm-hmm.
icky, or like, actually I'm not feeling it. It's because that emotional intimacy isn't quite there. So would
Exactly.
you like to share, maybe, like, for everybody listening or watching, maybe a special piece that they can do with their partners, um, that will bring them a little bit closer emotionally?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I think, you know, we've already said emotional intimacy, that like feeling of being in sync, it lets you feel safe and secure in the connection. It paves the way for the physical intimacy. And I think the key here is that to develop emotional intimacy, you must be willing to share your truth with your partner, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that has a bunch of components, right? The first one is that intentionality aspect that we already brought up. Um, the second one is that we need to be able to communicate with vulnerability. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that takes practice, like being able to communicate with vulnerability. And in order to be able to communicate with vulnerability, we have to be able to trust. We have to be able to trust our partners. We have to be able to trust that they're there to really like hear us and listen to us. And we have to remain open to whatever they have to say, right? So, you know, just not being judgy, right? Just really just listening to what they have to say, and validating their feelings, and practicing empathy. So those are the steps
Yeah.
that I kind of see there: the intentionality, the vulnerable communication, maintaining trust, remaining open, practicing empathy, right? Those are really the pieces of the puzzle. And you know, we learned so many wonderful things, Serena, in our work, about like how to lead tantric communication exercises. And that's always where I start, you know, in my workshops or with my private coaching. um, Doing those tantric communication exercises gives us the practice to then be able to have that open, honest communication when we are with our partners at home, right? You have to practice in order to be able to do it. We're not born knowing how to be open and vulnerable, right? And how to trust our partners. So I think, you know, doing practices like tantric communication is invaluable for like shifting our patterns, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I always start with them, with my clients too. And
Mhm.
I think that just that opening and that safety around being able to speak your truth and feeling
Mm.
seen and heard is, it opens that doorway, it opens the gateway to exploring other pathways, with,
Mhm.
like, intimacy, and with the physicality of being in a relationship. One of the core trainings that we learned, that we work with our clients, was the fears, loves, and desires, and to open up
Mhm. Mhm.
in a space where you can vulnerably share each of those things while being fully heard and seen by your partner. And I find that exercise just so powerful to work with. In with all of the clients that I work with, they all
Mhm.
come away feeling so much more connected with one another, just from a few
Mhm.
moments of actually being listened to, being seen,
Right.
which kind of goes to show that actually we don't do it enough. We are so
No,
busy
we don't.
that we forget to be present in that way.
Absolutely. And I remember one time I was leading a workshop, and I did this communication exercise that you described, Serena. And you know, afterwards, when I was talking to the couples about it, there was one couple that said, "We never have communicated that way before, and they had been married for years, right? So it's not something that people innately know how to do. It's really important to work with a coach, go to a workshop, learn how to do this kind of communication so that you can begin to practice that way in your life. And then, that emotional intimacy is going to pave the way for that physical intimacy, right? Once that
Mhm.
emotional piece is cultivated, then we can feel safe to move into touch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those who aren't feeling ready, and it may be for a number of reasons, like there's so many reasons, especially for women, why they feel anxious or nervous around
Hmm.
physical intimacy in the bedroom. Um, and once you've built that emotional connection, it may seem like you can maybe take steps towards physical intimacy.
Hmm.
But again, it doesn't, like we were saying before at the beginning, it doesn't need to be full blown bedroom stuff. It can be
Yes.
something as simple as the stroking of your hair or holding
Hmm.
hands. It could be maybe an intimate massage with your
Hmm.
partner, maybe, having your shoulders or your scalp massaged or something like that. Do you have any tools or any advice for people who are maybe they haven't been intimate in that way for such a long time
Hmm.
that it feels really scary? And if they're
Yes.
starting to build that connection, what they could take as their next steps?
Yes, I do have something to share. Yeah. I have something I teach my clients that I call incremental intimacy.
Okay.
I don't know if I coined that term or not, but I haven't heard anyone else use it. Yeah. So
Yeah, I haven't
incremental
either.
intimacy. Yeah. Yeah. So what that means is really feeling into what's comfortable for you. Right. And like slowing way down is key here. Right.
Mhm.
So you're starting small. You are starting out holding hands, sitting
Mm.
close, and once holding hands and sitting close feels comfortable, then maybe you can do some hugging, right? And then once
Yeah,
hugging feels like a regular activity that feels good to you, then you can try kissing, or then you
yeah,
can exchange shoulder massages, right? Like, and all these things are happening before you're even getting to getting naked, right? So if you're one of those couples that has been sitting on the couch, not necessarily right next to each other, not necessarily having sex, and you're starting to open up and you're starting to be vulnerable and establish that trust, then you take these sort of baby steps towards physical intimacy, and
yeah,
don't go straight from, oh, we've developed some emotional intimacy, so now I think we can go to the bedroom, right? Like, slow down. Let's
yeah,
just hold hands. And then
yeah,
once the holding hands feels really comfortable, okay, let's next time we'll sit closer, right? And oh, next time we'll try some kissing, right? And
yeah.
just incrementally going for like the next step in the process that feels right.
Yeah, and I think, it's really about validating how you're feeling and actually listening to your body cues. If you're
Mm,
emotionally ready, physically ready for those things, and if your body's not a full yes,
yeah.
then, like, going back and taking a step back and maybe
Hmm.
just being in a space that feels comfortable, because actually, if you push yourself too much, then you're going to be doing more damage than good, right? And a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
women specifically will say to me that they're scared to hold hands with their partners, or they're scared to sit next to them, or have that contact, because then
Hmm.
their partners will like jump them because they think that they're going to get something that they're
Right.
not quite
Yeah.
ready to give. And that's where the communication piece comes in, right? That's where why we're starting with the communication, why we're starting with opening up and in that safety and being able to
Hmm.
create that emotional connection, because you can speak your truth in that space. You can allow for your partner to hear what you fear, what you desire, and all of the good things. So your partner then knows exactly where they can take things, where
Mm-hmm.
you're ready for, where they're ready for, and you can build that intimacy that is kind of like in a big bubble of safety, and where the two of you are kind of
Yes.
playing on each other's edges, maybe just slightly, and
Mm-hmm.
and seeing where it takes you, rather than it feeling like, oh my goodness, if I sit next to my husband, I've had a really long day, I'm tired, I really don't want to be doing anything, but I have that urge for intimacy, for a bit of connection, but I know it's
Mm-hmm.
going to lead into XYZ. And actually, if you've had that open communication, and you've spoken to your partner about your day and how you're feeling, then your partner understands that actually that hug is like worth so much more than anything else that
Mm-hmm.
might happen. So it really is, I think, exactly about just taking it one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
leaning into your yeses and listening to your nos, and
Mm-hmm.
communicating that fully to your partner, because actually our partners will be more, um, they will appreciate the fact that we're being open and honest, rather than them not having a clue or not understanding why, because actually sometimes that can feel um, like we don't want them or we don't desire them, and
Mm-hmm.
and they have
Mm-hmm.
their own, um their own, their minds start to play games themselves. So actually, like, we don't know what they're thinking, they don't know what we're thinking, unless we open up and we communicate that. So to
Yeah.
have that safe space, that's
Absolutely.
where we go, and
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
keep
there
going with
has
it,
to be
right?
safety. There has to be the full body consent, that full body yes. Like we have to get used to listening to our bodies and is my body ready to move to the next step? And I've definitely heard that before, Serena, from clients, that they're afraid to be a little bit intimate physically with their husbands because then their husbands will think it's a green light for something much, much
Yeah.
more than what they had anticipated. And yes, you have to communicate. And I have a video course for men that's about this. It's a men's
Oh,
masterclass, and it
amazing.
instructs men how to approach women and how to start with the psychological and how to approach the anatomy in a way that's appropriate and how to look for that full body consent and so much more. So a lot of times when I
Amazing.
have a male client or when I'm with couples and I'm going to teach them massage, tantra massage or something like that, I require the men in the couple to take my men's masterclass first, because
I
then
love
that
that.
gives them the tools that they need to be able to interact in a way that's going to feel better for the woman. And it's really all about, you start with the emotional piece and then you go from the outer to the inner, right? Like the
Yeah.
closer you get to the core of someone's body, the more physically intimate that is, right? So
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
start on the edges, let's start on the outside, and like we said, move much more slowly.
Yeah, beautiful. I hope this
Hmm.
has helped anybody listening, anybody watching this back on replay, to know actually you're not alone when it comes to these thoughts and feelings we have around intimacy, because actually when we're being truly intimate in that core intimacy, when our souls are aligning, that is true vulnerability. And to
Hmm.
be able to get to a space where we can feel safe being truly vulnerable, being truly open, and to be truly seen by our partners, we need that container of safety and trust. And so it is a work in progress, and it's not something that will stay. You won't always be in that trust. Things will happen, and you might take a few steps back. But when you've got the tools to be able to get
Mm.
yourself back there, it becomes so much quicker to get back into that space of safety. So I'm hoping that if you're listening to this now, you have picked up some amazing insights, some light bulb moments. And if you've just tuned in, go back and watch this from the beginning, because there are some phenomenal pieces for you to pick up on and take into your relationship straight away. Thank you,
Mm.
Angela, for coming and chatting with me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. Would you like to let people know where they can come and find you?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Serena, for having me. This has been a really fun conversation. And yes, we left some good tidbits on here. So definitely catch the whole episode
Yeah.
if you want to cultivate emotional intimacy. So if you are interested in me and my coaching, my name is Angela Dawn, and you can find me at AuthenticHeartCoach.com. Or I'm
Amazing.
on Instagram and Facebook as Authentic Heart Coaching.
Amazing. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much. Oh, and Angela's also got a podcast as well.
I do. It's on all the major podcast platforms. It's called Quickies with Angela and Katie.
Go check that out.
CAITY. Yes.
Yeah, go check that out. Amazing. Thank you so much. Until next time, everybody, go have legendary love together. Bye-bye.